Shifty, wanna be the #1 gamer, come and get me.
Time to break this fucking loop.
I know people typically make these kind of videos in like the end of the year rather than the beginning of next year, but I feel like for me it's much easier to actually try to finish these games when I'm using the whole year instead of, you know, trying to squeeze in a video like this at the end of the year. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be talking about my top 8 games of 2021. Why 8 and not 10? Well, I didn't finish that many games this year, and that's just the honest truth. I don't want to put any games on this list that I did not finish or beat. I just feel like that is unfair. However, I will say that the games that I feel should have been in my 9th and 10th places, I'm going to say them now and mention them as honorable mentions. Those games being Forza Horizon 5 and Shin Megami Tensei 5. Both of those games I'm enjoying a ton. They're both extremely well made, extremely good games, but I just haven't finished them yet, so I didn't want to put them in the list necessarily. So those are my honorable mentions. But now let's get straight into the actual list. So yeah, number 8, It Takes Two. It Takes Two is the game that ended up winning Game of the Year at Jeff Keighley's Game Awards, and honestly, it's a really good game. It is. I enjoyed it. I played with a good friend of mine to kind of get the full experience of this game that focuses a lot on love and marriage and divorce and children, and you know, a topic that isn't, you know, necessarily talked about often in the world of video games. But this game not only talks about those issues, it makes a pretty fun co-op platformer experience, and it talks about those experiences very well. So while it is not necessarily my game of the year, because I feel like the game doesn't do enough for me personally, I understand why people would see it as their game of the year. So yeah, number 8 goes to It Takes Two. Number 7, Resident Evil Village. This may seem really low depending on who you talk to. I know a lot of people really loved Resident Evil Village. For me, I love the game for like half of it. When it came to Castle Dimitrescu, when it came to the dollhouse, I thought the game was phenomenal and did a really good job at trying to scare me, and it was just extremely masterfully made in those 2 sections. The game doesn't really fall off for me until you get to like this water village area, and you get to this machine factory location, that I feel like the game starts dropping off a fair bit. So I didn't quite fall in love with it as much as other people did, but the game is still extremely well made, extremely good, and it's one of the only games I can think of that actually had a moment to scare me. Like, I feel like I'm a difficult person to get when it comes to that kind of thing. So yeah, number 7 goes to Resident Evil Village. Number 6, No More Heroes 3. Now, I know most people who know me are probably expecting that game to be significantly higher, considering how much I love the No More Heroes games. But I just can't in good faith put the game any higher than this, primarily because of the technical state the game launched in. Mind you, if No More Heroes 3 launched, you know, like in a state where there was no technical issues whatsoever and it worked perfectly fine, this game would be significantly higher on this list, because the combat is great, everything about the game is fantastic, the music's amazing. I am fortunate to have known some of the people who made music for this game and had the, you know, the opportunity to interview them. And while I love so much about this game, it's just really hard to ignore the technical shortcomings the game has that can be pretty damn crazy and like how far that goes. But you know, when I get past those technical issues, the game was still one of my favorite games of this year for what is there. And that's probably weird to say, but that's just the honest truth. I really enjoyed No More Heroes 3. It would be higher if those technical issues weren't there, but it still managed to crack my top 8 or top 10, I guess, for this year. So yeah, that's kind of it. No More Heroes 3. Number 5, Monster Hunter Rise. This game, I'm pretty sure, has the most gameplay hours out of the entire year, out of any game on this list. I put, like, I want to say easily, like, maybe more than 100 hours, I think, or almost 200 hours on Monster Hunter Rise this year. This game, for the longest time, was my game of the year in the first half of 2021. It was just phenomenal. Mind you, I'm not somebody who's played a ton of Monster Hunter. I want to say I'm much more of a newer fan that came in with Monster Hunter World. Even though I have played Monster Hunter games before that, Monster Hunter World was the one I really, played a significant amount of hours. But I also had a lot of issues with Monster Hunter World. I didn't really fall in love with it. I kind of fell off the game after the game had a lot of situations where you had to wait to fight monsters because they wanted to do this sort of, like, I guess, realistic exploration thing to find the monsters. Rise kind of just... I think it goes back to basics. I could be wrong. You Monster Hunter veterans could definitely feel free to comment down below if this is true or accurate or whatever. But I feel like it goes back to basics where it kind of just goes past those exploration situations and rather goes straight into just fighting the monster, which I think I prefer so much more. Because if there's any reason why I'm playing Monster Hunter, it is just to fight the monsters. And I feel like Rise, with its traversal mechanics, with the wire bug, with the new abilities you have with said wire bug, and the more verticality to the map layouts, plus the actual monsters themselves, and being able to fight them directly instead of having to go through these exploration missions. This is the definitive Monster Hunter game for me. I don't think... I mean, I'm sure Monster Hunter veterans are going to have some other Monster Hunter games for them, but as someone who's only played maybe like 3 of them, this was the game for me. And I hope you should play this game. It is a great game. Play it. That's all I have for it. So, yeah, 5 goes to Monster Hunter Rise. Number 4, Halo Infinite. Halo Infinite feels like it's a return to form for a franchise that has lost its way for a really long time. 343 has kind of struggled in finding the right balance with how to handle Halo as a whole, whether it's making the campaign a very emotional, story-driven thing involving Master Chief's character and Cortana, or a multiplayer focus that kind of goes into the esports crowd. And while Infinite for sure is not perfect, there's a lot of issues, especially on the multiplayer side specifically, like monetization and the shop and whatnot, and progression to the battle pass. Things are getting better in the game, and it is actively improving. And meanwhile, what is there is extremely well done. This is by far 343's best effort in a Halo game ever, like, period. Halo 4 and 5 were their previous works, and they just pale in comparison to what Halo Infinite accomplishes. Again, the game's not perfect, which is why it's not higher up on this list, but the campaign is great, and there is room for improvement. The multiplayer is also really, really good, but it's also lacking a few things. So for that reason, I've had a ton of fun playing Halo. It's probably second in terms of how much time I've put into the game compared to, like, say, Monster Hunter Rise. So I can't deny that I'm really in love with Halo Infinite. I'm still playing it at the time of this recording. Like, I'm still actively playing the game. And I'm just really, really shocked that the same company that made Halo 5 made Halo Infinite. It is a much higher quality game, and it almost doesn't feel like the same people made this game. But it's a great game. I highly recommend it if you like multiplayer shooters. And it's great to see Halo back on track. Now, if they can address the the elephant in the room with the microtransactions in the shop, ain't nobody trying to spend $20 on a stupid AI. 343, all right. So get on that. All right. Number 3, Deathloop. Deathloop, for the longest time, was my game of the year. Also, and there was a good span of like 2 months or so in the gaming industry where I was playing certain games and they all felt like they could have been game of the year, and I was actively switching them out. Honestly, when it comes to Deathloop and the next 2 games on this list, they were constantly being switched out in terms of what I considered to be my game of the year, and it was really hard for me to kind of like, pinpoint which games exactly go where in this placement. It was actually really difficult. But Deathloop, I feel, has a pretty amazing premise while also having a ton of sequence breaking, which is something that I love. It is anything I love in any game. It is any game that allows me to, go off the beaten path, do something different than what the game initially wants you to do, and just figure out the solutions yourself. Deathloop, being developed by Arcane Studios, the makers behind like Dishonored, are pretty much masters at this. Like, I think they're very, very talented and very good at figuring out how to make games that give you this sense of choice. They give you a set of tools, they give you your objective, and they say, go out and do it in any way you can figure out. And I love that. And Deathloop is no different in this case. It is one of the best in the genre at doing this, and that does appeal to me greatly. Also, the premise of a time loop going on constantly that Colt has to figure out how to get out of is masterful. This game is fantastic, and as of right now, to me, this is the best game on the PlayStation 5. Number 2, Psychonauts 2. Psychonauts is phenomenal, and I feel like I can't say too much about it because Psychonauts as a game is, well, it's a platformer that focuses a lot on like a sort of like the mental state of numerous different individuals that are all suffering from their own personal problems that Rasputin is gonna basically help them through. I don't want to say too much for those who haven't played it because I feel like when it comes to the general consensus of Game of the Year discussions, Psychonauts 2 is not as talked about as, say, certain other games that I've already talked about or will talk about after this one. And I feel like more of my friends, more people that are watching this video should definitely go out of their way and play Psychonauts 2. If you are someone who has an Xbox, you can play Psychonauts 2 through Xbox Game Pass. I'm not sure if it's on PC Game Pass, but if it is, you should definitely check it out. It is also on PlayStation consoles, despite being an Xbox Game Studios published title. So if you are someone on a PlayStation, you should definitely check it out. It's a great game. If you like platformers, it's a great game. It also has a really good story, talking about, like I said, the mental state of different individuals dealing with different choices in their lives. Highly recommended. Personally, I feel like this is the best platformer I've played since Mario Odyssey, which wasn't really that long ago, but you get the point. This is a phenomenal game. Highly recommended. It looks gorgeous. Play it. You really should play it. Game of the Year goes to Metroid Dread. This is another phenomenal game that, and like I said, when it came to Psychonauts and Deathloop, was really hard to figure out which was the game that I feel deserves Game of the Year. But when I look at Deathloop, when I look at Psychonauts, I feel like Metroid Dread is the closest any game came to this year to just being perfect. Now, I don't think any game is perfect. Every single game on this list has its issues, but I feel like, Metroid was the closest at achieving this. Say what you want about every other game on this list, but if I say, for example, compare Metroid to Deathloop, both games are games that are, open to an extent. Both games are games that just give you a set of tools and say, figure it out. Sequence break the game as much as you want. And I love that. That's why both Deathloop and Metroid Dread are so high on this list. Those are things that appeal to me so much, and I love it. So yes, give me more. The only reason why Deathloop is third compared to the other games pretty much just has to do with the fact that the multiplayer is a little unbalanced. That's kind of it. But it's so close in this particular sense. Metroid Dread is just a game after 19 years in the making, finally releases, and it is phenomenal. And I don't know if this is controversial, but it might just be my favorite Metroid game of all time. That's a take. You can feel however way you feel about it, but that's kind of it. I feel like most of the people who is watching this have played it, but if you haven't played it, highly check it out. It is probably the best game. That's kind of all I have for you guys for today. These are my favorite games of 2021. Hope you guys had a good New Year's. Hope you guys are doing well. And yeah, that's kind of it. So until then, I'll see you guys in the next one.
Well, Ethan Winters. stack it up. Yeah, better rice, I lay it down, then I nap it up. I'm on a roll when I'm macking up. Yeah, hey, roll it like a bowling ball. Hey, one seafood and beef, oh, pick and hold it all. Do what I want, I never been below the law. Took a bite and the nori winning.
No More Heroes 3.
Can you say hi?
Hi.
And how big are you?
How big are you?
Can you tell Daddy how big you are? Are you so big?
Super.
And can you sing?
Tingle.
Good singing. How about I miss you?
Miss you.
And I love you.
I love you.
I love you, Daddy.
I love you, Daddy.
And I can't wait to see you. Can you say see you?
See you.
Good, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Tag designation friendly. Signal detected. Tag designation.
This is UNSC Pelican Echo 216. Can you hear me? This is UNS.
Molecule through my cosmic eye. Senses are the magic keys.
Static delusion. This is where we do or die. And I've been here before, face to face with the gun. Up against all the odds, and I'm the only one. Oh, I've been here before, it must be true. This is death at the beginning of the end again. It's deja vu.
Shifty, yeah, Shifty. Wanna be the number one gamer, come and get me.
Time to break this fucking loop.